Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow and this is the Blood Surge Necromancer. It's an off-meta pick despite the recent buffs to certain blood abilities like the ultimate Blood Wave. Is this then a weak, unplayable build? Well, no. In tiers 35 plus, I'm crunching packs of enemies and elites effectively, and it feels great with some setup. Blood Surge as a core ability is awesome. You smash down and explode on impact, scaling its damage through the incredible, powerful damage modifier that is Overpower. We gain some mega crit damage, high crit chance, group and debuff enemies, and shatter them with those Blood Surges. Through the pull-in, we actually spawn a ton of Blood Orbs, and through our basic and other various means, we can spawn more of them and collect tons of healing. That not only generates loads of essence, it also increases our damage, it overheals, creates shields and fortify, making us quite tanky, which then in turn causes more overpower potential for us to blast and smash again. Thanks to a particularly powerful unique, we can even send out Bone Spirits for free by collecting these Blood Orbs, which just means extra burst damage. Compared to the all-powerful Bone Spirit build that I did very recently, this feels and works similar, prepping fights and then just all-inning, powering up and going again. But compared to that, the explosive range is actually bigger than the Bone Spirits, so catches more enemies, and it pulses multiple times thanks to the Blood Surge aspect. It's also more consistent with essence and cooldowns, which by comparison means it clears the weaker, smaller mob packs a lot smoother, which is definitely a downside to Bone Spirit. The damage ticks with the right setup can easily reach over 600k, and we're dumping our essence to smash many ticks of that in seconds, racking up to millions of damage in one burst. So as an alternative build, I think it's got a lot of potential, and the truth is, I think they're going to buff Blood as a whole very soon. Right now it's under the radar because it doesn't hit as hard as the meta builds, and I do think more buffs are needed, but I think the potential is very high with a little bit more of a push. So I want to be set up with a good understanding and experience with the build, so I'm ready for that expected buff, to use it and abuse it should it become meta level strong. With all that said then, let's talk about what we're doing and how we achieve this. This build uses this unique, the Blood Artisan's chest piece. As you can see, its effect means when you pick up a certain amount of Blood Orbs, a free Bone Spirit is spawned. These normally cost 100% of your current essence. This is a great piece for the build, and it does mean we actually have to level Bone Spirit at least once. If you don't have this unique, it should free up some skill points that we'll talk about. So let's talk about that skill tree then. Starting with our basic, which is of course Hemorrhage. This deals damage, but it has a 20% chance to form a Blood Orb, and that's really key to the build, as we'll talk about. We enhance it, which means when you pick up a Blood Orb, the next Hem is actually going to be an AoE and give more essence, so that's really nice. And then it'll also give you Fortify based on the damage you do and health that you have, so it's really good. Then we have our core ability, of course, Blood Surge. This is our main damaging ability. We enhance it for improved healing and go for Paranormal Blood Surge, which stacks up to 5 stacks, at which point the next Blood Surge will always overpower. Of course, Unliving Energy to improve our max essence, and Imperfectly Balanced to improve the power of core skills, just making them cost more essence. Hued Flesh means we have pretty reliable sources of corpses. This is quite important. And we come down to the next tree where we pick up 1 level of Blood Mist for the iframes, and then very importantly, the Enhance, which reduces this cooldown every time we overpower. This is an overpower build, so great. And then the dreadful Blood Mist for further fortifying every time we take this for iframes. It really works into our basic gameplay, as we'll talk about. Next, the all-important Decrepify, which I believe you're going to start seeing in builds more and more as we get into the true endgame. At Nightmare Dungeon tiers 80 and above, having something as effective as this at reducing damage and slowing targets is going to be hard to ignore, and it fits really well into this build. We enhance it for the lucky hit to stun, and also the fact that it might reduce active cooldowns, which is nice. I also pick up 1 level of Death's Embrace, which we'll mention at the end, for both damage increase and mitigation. Down into the next tree, this is where things get interesting. We have Corpse Tendrils at 5 out of 5 to reduce the cooldown of it. Just like the Bone Spirit build, we want to be pulling people in, CCing them, increasing our damage through that, and then blasting them while stunned. So maxing this out will reduce the cooldown and means that consistently happens. Of course, we enhance it and then go for Blighted Corpse Tendrils because every target hit by the Tendrils has a 30% chance to spawn a Blood Orb. That's key to this build. We have our blood passives here. Gruesome Mending means we get more healing when below 50%. We want to be healthy all the time, so that won't really matter to us too much, so only 1 point there. 3 out of 3 in Coalesce Blood. While healthy, our blood skills deal a massive increase damage. And 3 out of 3 Tides of Blood means our blood abilities deal way more overpower damage, doubled when we're healthy. The build is all about being healthy and overhealed and dealing overpower damage, so that's phenomenal. At which point you see I've got 1 point in Drain Vitality, much like Death's Embrace. There's a reason for that, but it just nets us a little bit of Fortify potential whenever we deal damage with blood skills. You can see I've got 7 levels of Bone Spirit here. That's from item contributions. We actually only have the 1 level here. This is taken because we have that unique that causes a free Bone Spirit, but you need to at least have Bone Spirit for it to work. So if you don't have that unique, you obviously won't be taking this. In my case, I do. I spend a point to enhance it for a not relevant effect, but then Dreadful Bone Spirit, meaning every time a Bone Spirit hits an enemy, we just get 30 essence over 4 seconds. So that's really nice essence regen in the build sort of passively. We're also picking up 1 level of Necrotic Carapace, again for another form of Fortify whenever a corpse is formed from our skills. Only 1 level just to get the effect. We come down to our ultimate tree where of course we're picking up the newly buffed Blood Wave, dealing damage and knocking enemies back, slowing enemies as well, but most importantly leaving behind 3 blood orbs as it travels. A guaranteed source of blood orb and hitting many people, meaning it's probably going to spawn corpses before anyone's dead, which leads to Tendrils. It's really good. It sucks you can only take 1 ultimate though, because I absolutely would like Bone Storm for the damage reduction and also the crit chance. This is a sacrifice build, so we're going full standalone for damage reduction and of course the improvement to the sacrifice bonuses. For our key passive, we're taking Rathma's Vigor, largely increasing our max health, which is wonderful, but also a stacking passive. Being healthy for 15 seconds means your next blood skill will guarantee overpower, so you always want to use that on Blood Surge. To finish up and mention those 1 rank passives, each of them provides something really useful. So if you aren't using the Bone Spirit with a unique, that's where you would have extra points. And I would put them into Death's Embrace to max that out, then Drain Vitality as a secondary. Now for the Book of the Dead, as I said, it's a sacrifice build. For the Skeletal Warriors, we go Skirmishers to guarantee extra crit strike chance, since we don't have Bone Storm. Then Skeletal Mages as of course Bone, massively increasing overpowered damage, which is vital for this build. Lastly, Golems, no surprise, it's Iron Golem Sacrifice, largely increasing our critical strike damage. Now it's time for the big one, the Paragon board. Our first glyph in this first board is always going to be territorial, straight up increasing your damage to enemies that are close, as you will move towards them to do blood surges, and the straight 10% damage reduction against close enemies is mitigation that is next to impossible to ignore. It also only requires 25 dex, so you can always have this active even when it's not upgraded to level 15, so it's just so efficient. For the starting board, we move up and to the right to pick up the prime node, then move up to the center and grab the socket, then we'll pick up all the dexterity in range, and of course both rare nodes, moving up and out to the top left and getting our first board. That board is Blood Begets Blood. Blood Orbs now grant 5% times increased damage up to 15% times for 5 seconds. You pull in and smash mobs, you pick up all the Blood Orbs, and if anything's alive, it's about to not be because you're now hyper strong on that second Blood Surge burst. Also, this board has so many amazing rare nodes that we want to pick up, so it's just such a good board as a whole for this build. We rotate it so the legendary node is close and then make our way up to the left to pick up Aggression. 60% overpower damage when you get the extra bonus. That is amazing. All around it are extra damage and more importantly, overpower damage increases, so we absolutely want those. We'll move up and to the right to pick up the legendary node, and then up and to the left to pick up Invigorated. Then we'll move up and to the right and work our way over to the socket. Here I have Dominate. This improves the damage and ability of your overpower. Then the additional bonus is whenever you overpower an enemy, all damage they take from you is increased by 12% times for 5 seconds. That's a huge damage increase. We'll also pick up the rare node on the left for improved blood orb healing. We want that for always being full health and overhealing for the shields. Then we'll leave above and to the right to pick up Blood Empowered for similar reasons. We come right and down to the next rare node, Vampiric, for more blood orb healing and more max health, and leave the board to the right. Our next board is Bloodbath, another obvious choice. This legendary node means the passives that cause guaranteed overpower deal 50% times increased overpower damage. So our key passive, when that procs, is dealing so much more damage than normal, which also means it's really important not to waste that. It also features the Powerhouse rare node for more overpower damage and damage while healthy. For this, we make our way down and to the right to pick up the Overpower rare node, and of course the magic nodes around it for overpower damage, and come down and to the right to pick up the Glyph socket. So for this board, we make our way to the right and down to that Powerhouse rare node, and up and around to the right to pick up the legendary node. Then we work our way down and through the bottom to, of course, pick up the Glyph. Here, I've had a really hard time picking. Getting 25 dex in this slot is actually quite easy. Getting 25 willpower is not. This is where I'll probably put in a plus 40 stat required glyph when I replace this. But ultimately, this improves the crit strike damage of core skills, which is nice. And if an enemy is not healthy, we deal way more damage to them. In the meantime, we're going to pick up the rare nodes, of course, on the bottom and the right, picking up some magic nodes around that when we have the points to. As I mentioned though, when we get some radius increases on other glyphs, I'm going to replace some of these. Sacrificial being a great option for permanent 10% damage increase when we have no minions. Anything that requires 40 stats though needs an upgrade to actually reach that. Another version of that would be Blood Drinker for more fortify via your blood orbs. Another option is Undaunted if you have a space for plus 25 willpower, which you won't be able to on the third board, so maybe on the fourth board. In regards to that fourth board, I'm thinking Scent of Death, because that legendary node provides consistent mitigation when corpses are around, or rarer, an awesome damage spike when they aren't. But that's the board and my plans. Alright, lots to say now as we go into the equipment. We'll start with the weapon. I still have my two-handed sword. This is because two-handed swords come with massive crit strike damage increase, but you could consider a scythe because those give you health on kill. That can keep you healthy and then overshield for overpower, which is nice. But obviously there's also much more consistent damage in the form of crit strike. I think this one is up for debate because I have a good sword, I went with that. On this two-hand weapon, we go with Grasping Veins, much like the Bone Spirit build. This means we massively increase our crit strike chance when we cast Corpse Tendrils. Then those damaged by the Tendrils and pulled in and stunned will take way more damage with crit strike damage. It's the crux of how we pull in and blast and burst, so this is obviously awesome for that. From the top with the helmet though, we of course go with Disobedience, pretty much the meta pick for a defensive aspect. You should have this and ideally top roll it. By dealing damage, you generate armor and that gives you massive resistances. Just standing here, I have like nearly 6k armor. I'll easily get towards 10k when that's going. Next is the chest piece. This is the unique, the Blood Artisans we've been talking about. Not only does it have that awesome passive that we talked about with Bone Spirit spawns, but it levels up Bone Spirit's power, it improves the damage after picking up Blood Orb, and improves Blood Orb healing by a huge amount. Also, bonus armor is just wonderful. If you do not have this, then I would go for damage mitigation, probably in the form of the aspect that gives you shielding when you deal damage to an elite. For the gloves, we go for the sacrifice aspect. I've got a top roll at 25% increase to my bonuses. Since we're sacrificing everything, that's improving my crit strike chance. And you can see how with my Iron Golem, it's not 30%, but 38%. So this is awesome. For my legs, I have the Temerity Unique. Gives me a barrier whenever I overheal, so that's just perfect synergy with this build. Hard to ignore this one then, isn't it? But again, any damage mitigation aspect will help here if you don't have this. For boots, we go for Explosive Mist aspect, causing Blood Mist to detonate corpses, reducing its cooldown so we have more iframes, which is always useful. Now we have the jewelry first, the amulet. This is the Blood Surge specific aspect improvement, the Bloodbath aspect. It causes the Nova to echo again after a short delay, which is how I'm getting the multiple pops per Blood Surge. And on the amulet, it makes it even less weakened. So it's a good spot to have the thing that improves your main ability. Then we have Rathma's Chosen. Whenever your blood skills overpower, which is going to be often, we gain attack speed for 4 seconds. So if we get an overpower, this means we're going to be able to use Hemorrhage and get loads of blood orbs from that, and a nice burst of essence too. When it comes to essence generation, we have our final ring here. In my case, I've got Potent Blood. While at full life, blood orbs will also give essence as you collect them. As you can see, this one's a low roll because it came from my codex, but even 10 per blood orb is actually awesome. 20 would obviously be way better. As an alternative, you could consider a Umbral aspect, assuming it's rolled 3 to 4, because then you get lots of resources per any crowd control, which is obviously insane. Another aspect that I don't have that you could put here is the Starlight aspect, which will give you essence based on the amount of healing you do. And as we're healing constantly, that means lots of essence. So those are your 3 options. When it comes to the skills or stats that you find on your equipment, that's obviously really important as always. So here's a quick rundown of what I'm looking for. You want as much crit strike chance as possible. We want to push as near to 100% as we can physically get. With that, crit strike damage is always good. Of course, overpower damage is key to this build, so that's going to be wonderful. Then damage to stunned and CC'd enemies in general, and blood skill damage as well will further improve your damage. Obviously, leveling up your blood surge with ranks to that is going to be huge, and Corpse Tendrils, leveling that up is going to be really nice as well to reduce the cooldown. For utility and defense, we're looking for things like cooldown reduction, essence cost reduction, and blood orb healing can be nice as well. Raw damage reduction is also wonderful. Reducing damage from close enemies, far enemies, while you're fortified, or increasing your max health, these also work as defensive stats. builds. So there's a lot to consider that you can work on, lots to roll that could be good. In regards to my gems, you can see I'm going for maximum life, using rubies, much like in my weapon that improves my overpower damage, which is awesome. Then as always, in jewelry, I go for skulls for their armor increase, because it's just so good. Now let's do a quick talk on how to play this build. Essentially, you will always be decrepifying every target you see. This reduces the damage they deal and also might stun them, it will slow them, and it helps with CDR, which is very nice. At which point we're looking to spawn some corpses for a tendril pull. You can either blood wave to very likely get those and spawn some blood orbs, consistently improving your damage, shielding you and further before you go hard, but that would waste your key passive, causing your blood wave to take the overpower. It would be great if you could just first blood surge to spend that, bursting damage, probably generating a lot of corpses or killing. But either way, follow it up with a corpse tendrils as soon as there's a body, and then absolutely smash blood surge while walking around if you can, picking up blood orbs to improve damage. If anything is alive after that first burst, you'll go pick up all the blood orbs that have been generated by the killing and the corpse tendrils. This will heal you, overshield you, improve your damage, give you overpower potential, then your corpse tendrils again, and spam some more blood surge. So essentially, it's debuff the enemy, spend your key passive, generating blood orbs, guarantee that with blood wave, pull them in with corpse tendrils, and smash them while they're stunned with blood surge. If anything's alive, you can walk around picking up blood orbs and go for the next corpse tendril slam. This may involve using blood mist though, because you can ghost walk through them to pick up all the blood orbs. It'll generate a lot of fortify, and that'll give you more overpower potential. As always, it depends on the situation. How hard do you need to go on this pull? Can you literally just blood surge them? Or do you need to do this full setup as I've just explained? Keep in mind that every time you pick up a blood orb, it will give you the Hemorrhage enhanced passive, meaning your next Hemorrhage is an AoE. So make sure you're just tapping that while doing all of this every time that's available, because it means a lot of essence generation, which we obviously absolutely want. But there you have it. That is my overview of this alternative off-meta build that is a blood surge build. I think alternative builds and the build variety in general in D4 is fantastic. But like this one and many other builds, they're just not as strong compared to the meta most viable options. Blood surge builds though, they land weirdly in the middle of not meta, but certainly not weak. With just a little bit more buff to its core gameplay mechanics, I think it could be easily meta. However, not many people are going to mess around with this because it's so hard to change builds and test other builds. I really hope they're more lax on that and change it soon. But yeah, I still think it needs more damage, more healing, bigger shields, make the shields last longer. That'd be nice. And it does struggle a bit with extended single target, that's for sure. But the game is mostly about mob clear, to be fair. And it'd also be cool if we saw the other blood-based builds get some love. If you didn't know, there's a unique amulet specifically for blood surge, causing a mini nova around your minions, as you can see. This is cool, but so awkward because you need to just have the golem, because you can't give up the overpower benefits of, say, sacrificing the skeletons. Or there's the corpse explosion potential version, where every time you pop one, there's a good chance it'll spawn a blood orb. So there are quite a lot of blood-related builds that exist that just have no relevance, no power. Hopefully we see future buffs in the coming patch, and maybe they'll be meta relevant. For now though, that is my overview of the blood surge build in particular. If you found this useful or interesting, then drop a like, and if you've got any good blood build related tips, maybe you'll help someone, drop it in the comments. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.